In the right corner, we have the all-new Sigma 17-40 F1.8, and in the left corner, one of the most popular APS-C zoom lenses of all time, the Sigma 18-50 F2.8. And in today's video, these two lenses are going to be stepping into the ring, and we're going to be comparing them head-to-head to help you decide which one is right for you. So let's start by going over the differences between these two lenses, and to make things a little bit more interesting, we're going to be handing points to either or both lenses for each area of comparison, so by the end of today's video we can crown a zoom lens winner. So we're going to kick things off nice and easy and give both of these lenses a point for overall build quality. Whilst the Sigma 17-40 is better, both lenses are still made from really good materials and feel great in the hand, so for that they both get a point here. The first difference you'll notice between these two lenses is pretty obvious, and that is the size. The Sigma 17-40 is just over 1.5 inches taller than the 18-50 when both are set to their shortest focal length. However, once you zoom the 18-50 all the way out to 50mm, it extends quite a bit and ends up nearly as long, just slightly shorter than the 17-40. The 17-40 actually has an internal zoom, so no matter what focal length you're at, the overall size of the lens is never going to change. In terms of weight, there is a noticeable difference here. The 17-40 comes in at 535 grams and the 18-50 weighs just 290 grams. When you hold both of these lenses in the hand, you do notice that weight difference. However, I wouldn't say the 17-40 is heavy, especially compared to full frame lenses. It's manageable. Also, we have to take into consideration that much of the weight from the 17-40 can be attributed to that stunning F1.8 aperture. If you prioritize a lightweight setup, then on the surface, the 18-50 seems like the better choice. But we have to keep in mind that the 17-40 actually has the ability of replacing multiple different prime lenses. So if, for example, you had the 18-50, a 16mm, a 23mm, and a 30mm, the overall weight of all of those lenses would be 1,299 grams, 764 grams more than the overall weight of the 17-40. And nearly all of those focal lengths are covered, bar 1mm on the wide end and 10mm on the telephoto end. And whilst all of this is handled at f1.8 as opposed to f1.4, I don't see that being a major downside for the versatility you get in exchange. Of course, some shooters might be better off at f1.4 as opposed to f1.8 because I think you get 2/3 of a stop more with f1.4, so that can make a significant difference when light is entering the camera. But when it comes to background blur and bokeh, if we do a little comparison here at f1.4 to f1.8, as you can see, there isn't a huge difference at 23mm. Anyway, getting back on topic, when comparing these two zoom lenses, ultimately the 18-50 is lighter and more compact. Based on those factors alone, the 18-50 is getting the point in this round. However, the 17-40 is immediately going to claw back a point here for weather sealing. Whilst both lenses do feature a rubber gasket at the mounting point to protect against dust, rain and moisture, the 17-40 goes much further by offering a dust and splash resistant construction, and the front element features an oil repellent coating. And whilst I've used the 18-50 in the heavy rain before without a single issue, based on facts alone, the 17-40 is getting the point in this round. Lens features is another round that is going to be won by the 17-40, as the Sigma 18-50 only offers a focus ring, whilst the 17-40 offers two custom buttons, an AF to MF switch, an aperture ring that can be declicked or locked, and of course a focus ring. Now, not everyone needs these kind of features. Honestly, I only ever use on a lens like this the custom buttons and on the odd occasion the AF to MF switch. I never put around using the aperture ring. But again, we're basing this on facts, so in this round the 17-40 offers more, so it gets the point in this round. Okay, so now let's get on to the big one, sharpness and image quality. Now, I have used both of these lenses extensively out in the real world and neither has let me down. But before we get on to talking about my experiences using these lenses, I did conduct some sharpness tests to see how these lenses compare side by side. At first glance, the 17-40 is very similar in sharpness to the 18-50, maybe just a touch softer in the center, wide open at f1.8 compared to the 18-50 at f2.8. But here's where it gets interesting. In the corners, even at f1.8, the 17-40 is noticeably sharper. When you put both lenses at f2.8, sharpness across the frame is pretty much neck and neck, but once again, the 17-40 holds the edge in the corners. At f5.6, the center sharpness is basically identical on both lenses, super crisp, but yep, you guessed it, in the corners, it still goes to the 17-40. By f8, the 18-50 catches up quite a bit. They're very close now, but I'd still give a slight advantage to the 17-40 overall. It's only really at f11, which is usually where most lenses hit peak sharpness, that the corner sharpness finally evens out completely between these two. Now, all of these tests were done at the widest focal point of both of these lenses, so I repeated these tests again, this time matching both of them at 40mm to see if anything changed. And here's what I found. Up until f8, the 17-40 is still the sharper lens overall, but once you hit f8, at 40mm the tables turn. The 18-50 pulls ahead, especially in the corners. At f11, things level out again, but if I'm being picky, I'd say the 18-50 edges out the 17-40 by a tiny margin in corner sharpness. So whilst these lens charts and sharpness tests are interesting for pixel peeping to see how both of these lenses perform in control conditions, they are just stress tests. In the real world, both of these lenses deliver impressive sharpness and excellent image quality. I've used both to capture some amazing photos, and honestly, they've never let me down. If I had to be really picky, I'd say the Sigma 17-40 f1.8 is overall the sharper lens, but out in the field, in the real world, the difference is so minute that probably nobody would ever notice a difference. So if you're thinking of upgrading from the 18-50 to the 17-40, don't expect some dramatic jump in everyday sharpness. In real world shooting scenarios, both are fantastic performers and you'll get beautiful razor sharp results with either one. So based on everything we've just talked about with these two lenses, I'm going to give both of them a point for sharpness and image quality. You can't go wrong with either. The focal lengths between these two lenses, as we know, vary slightly, but before we get into that, the full frame equivalent of the 18-50 is 25 to 75mm, and the 17-40 is 25.5 to 60mm. I bring this up because anytime you put a lens on an APS-C sensor, you have to times that focal length by 1.5 times to get the equivalent focal length. When it comes to the difference, 17mm versus 18mm may not seem like that big of a jump, but there's definitely an advantage to having the widest lens possible, especially on APS-C. Although I wouldn't make a purchasing decision based on a 1mm difference. What's a more interesting comparison is 40mm versus 50mm. Personally, I tend to zoom in as much as possible when I want to isolate a subject or capture tighter detail shots. In this scenario, I definitely preferred having a 50mm instead of being limited to 40mm. You can see the difference here on screen side by side. The 18-50 does give you a bit more reach, but here's the twist. Both lenses here are shown at f2.8. If I open up the 17-40 all the way to f1.8, you get noticeably more background blur and subject separation than you do with the 18-50. So it's a tough call. The 18-50 definitely offers a more versatile focal range, but the 17-40 balances things out with that f1.8 aperture, which gives you the creative freedom to explore things like portraits, low light shooting, and more cinematic video. In my opinion, that makes the 17-40 just as versatile as the 18-50, just in a slightly different way. At the end of the day, it really comes down to what you value more. Do you want a lighter lens with a bit more reach, or are you okay with having a lens being a little heavier, but in exchange you get prime light quality, beautiful background blur, and low light shooting capabilities all in one lens? So when it comes to actually deciding how to score this round, at first I was really stumped, but eventually this is where I landed. For focal range, I'm going to give the 18-50 a full point, since it does give you that extra reach, and the 17-40 gets half a point for being slightly wider but not quite matching the long end. For versatility, I decided to give both of these lenses a point. The 17-40 earns it thanks to its f1.8 aperture, which really opens up more creative and professional options whether you're shooting in low light, capturing weddings, doing portraits, or working on video projects. The 18-50 gets the point for having a longer focal range being lighter, more compact, which makes it a great all-rounder for everyday use. In terms of what they can do out in the field, both lenses hold their own and are versatile for similar but also different reasons. When it comes to bokeh and low light, that F1.8 aperture is simply superior to that F2.8. This not only gives you creamier background blur, but also makes the 17-40 the better choice for low light shooting, as we've already discussed. So for this round, it's a clear point for the Sigma 17-40 and 0 points to the 18-50. When it comes to autofocus, let's just go ahead and immediately slap a point on the board for both of these lenses. I've shot extensively with each of them, and honestly, neither has let me down, and neither will let you down either. The autofocus is fast, accurate and reliable, exactly what you want and need from a lens, whether you're shooting photo or video. So a well-deserved point for each in this round. When it comes to minimum focus distance, there's a clear winner here. The 17-40 can focus as close as 28 centimeters, but the Sigma 18-50 takes that a step further. This can focus as close as 12.1 centimeters. This means you could be practically touching your subject with the 18-50 and still get sharp results, making it surprisingly capable for basic macro style shots. Don't get me wrong, the 17-40 puts up a good fight, but in this round, the 18-50 definitely gets the win. Since both of these lenses are third party, neither is compatible with Sony's lens breathing compensation. But honestly, that doesn't seem to matter here because both lenses handle focus breathing really well. At the wide end, the 18-50 shows virtually no focus breathing at all, and even at 50mm, there's only a small amount. Meanwhile, the 17-40 in my test controlled the focus breathing really well throughout the entire focal range. So it's a close round, but overall, the 17-40 did just a little better. A win is a win, so for this round, the Sigma 17-40 gets the point. When it comes to chromatic aberration, both of these lenses put in a solid performance. Even if you're pixel peeping in tricky backlit environments, zooming all the way in and lifting the shadows, both lenses handle it really well. You could argue that the 17-40 controls it a bit better, but honestly, the difference is ultra minimal. For everyday shooting, neither lens will give you any issues with chromatic aberration. Now looking at the Bokeh, which is longitudinal chromatic aberration, which appears in front and behind your focus plane, the 17-40 has the edge here. In my test at F2.8, the 18-50 shows a bit more of that blue and orangey fringing, whilst the 17-40 kept it better controlled. Now an interesting finding is that the colour fringing at F1.8 on the 17-40 nearly matches what you see on the 18-50 at F2.8. Both lenses clean up completely at F4, from there you won't see any chromatic aberration. Overall, both of these lenses handle it really well, and honestly I should stress that in 99% of shooting scenarios out in the real world, it's something you'll never have to worry about. So don't get too caught up looking at all these lens charts, because every lens is going to show some kind of bokeh in extreme conditions, but out in the real world it's rarely going to be an issue. For this round, I think it's fair to give points to the Sigma 17-40 for its overall better handling of chromatic aberration, but the 18-50 isn't far behind. When it comes to price, these lenses are in quite different leagues. At the time of recording this, the 18-50 is $535, and here in the UK it's £479. On the other hand, the 17-40 is a tad more expensive. It's currently $919 and £779 here in the UK. Now once again, we also have to take into consideration that this lens can replace multiple different prime lenses and also does 90% of the focal range as the 18-50. And if you bought the 18-50, a 16mm prime, a 23mm prime, and a 30mm prime, the total cost would be about $1,800, nearly 50% more than buying just this lens. So in the long run, it actually might be more expensive to buy this lens and multiple different primes than just buying this lens. But the problem with this lens is it's one bigger initial payment that a lot of people might might not be able to afford at first. So whilst the 17-40 can replace multiple different prime lenses, it has the F1.8 aperture and more pro level features, the 18-50 still stands out as the more affordable option, which will make it more appealing with APS-C shooters. After weighing it up and basing it just on the initial price alone, the 18-50 is going to get the point in this round. If you want to check out either of these lenses for yourself, a link for them will be in the description below. So after 13 brutal rounds of battle, we have our final scores, and the winner is the Sigma lens. Terrible joke, I know, but I don't get to make those kind of jokes often, so I'm going to make them whilst I can. But in all seriousness, when the dust settles, the 18-50 finishes with 8 points, and the 17-40 finishes with 9.5 points. Meaning by just 1.5 points between these two fantastic lenses, the 17-40 is crowned our winner. But remember, as always, points just tell part of the story. The 18-50 is still an incredible lens, especially if you're looking for something that is lightweight, compact, and budget friendly. It's an absolute workhorse for travel, everyday photography, and video, and for the price, it's really hard to beat. On the other hand, the 17-40 really feels like Sigma set out to redefine what an APS-C zoom lens can be. It's packed with pro features, sharp corners, a beautiful fast aperture, and the ability to replace multiple different primes in one go. If you want to maximize creativity, flexibility, and don't mind more weight and cost, the 17-40 is a seriously exciting option. At the end of the day, there's no real wrong choice here. It just depends on your budget, your shooting style, and what you value most in the lens. I would love to hear which one you'd pick. Let me know in the comments section below, and if you did find this comparison video helpful, hit the like button and maybe consider subscribing. And with all that said and done, until next time my friends, create, explore, and inspire.